Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Matthew Dickerson. Tech Talk. Sit back and relax. It's time to talk technology.
Hello, time travellers. Set your calibration to here and now, because in the fabric of space-time, this is where you want to pause for just a little bit and make yourself comfortable. Welcome to Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Now, in today's episode, we're all about the robots and the AI. We'll check out robot dogs on Mars. Sounds like the name of a schlock sci-fi movie, I guess. And we're chasing runaway robots down a street near you. We're looking at a factory where robots and men work together in harmony, and we've got all the nuts and bolts on that one. And we'll bring you the latest news on how Australia is driving into the future. But before all of that, let's bring our man of the moment to the microphone, fresh from his trip through the wormhole. It's a man who lives for the future. Welcome, Matthew Dickerson.
Well, it would be nice if I could go through the wormhole, because I've been at the Gold Coast in the last week. And it's been a bit warmer than it has here where we are. So the wormhole, I had to go good old-fashioned planes to get there, but the wormhole would be nice just to duck up in
just
warm
to pop
weather.
Up, like you're walking into the lounge room and then all of a sudden, oh, look at
That's
the
right,
Gold
here I
Coast.
am on the nice warmer beach. Yeah, it's nice to see that. So I was at a conference, and I won't mention the name of the company that was hosting the conference, but it was quite interesting to see how much focus there is on cybersecurity, cyber scams.
Oh, it's the hot topic of the age.
Absolutely right, which is reassuring in some way. And this was a conference that was mainly focused on telecommunications. So just to see the number of things that are trying to be put in place before it gets to us, we've still got to be vigilant with what we do. And one of the things at the conference when there was so much focus on it was you heard lots of stories about things that happened, scams, etc., which we've talked about before, a few of the various examples that have occurred. So you saw or heard lots more about some of those. But it is nice to see that there is some work, some serious work being done. But of course, as we've talked about before, you get a little barrier put in place and the scammers then go around, over, through that barrier.
Yeah.
And while I was up there one night, someone actually mentioned to me, related to the conference if you like, but kind of slightly aside, they said there's a movie called The Beekeeper. And it's a Jason Statham movie, and so it's a Jason Statham fan. It's hard to see a bad Jason Statham movie. But what was good in that particular movie was there were some examples, and the focus was on Jason Statham doing Jason Statham things, where he goes and basically...
And he's just a tough guy.
That's right, takes out lots of people. But the point of this was that there was a scammer, a lady that he knows was scammed, and so he went to go and get the scammers. You don't want to get on Jason's bad side.
Or Liam Neeson's. So, yeah.
Well, that was
two
almost
people
like
to avoid.
that if there were two people that you don't want to scam or their friends, it's Liam and Jason. So he went to get the scammers. But what was good, they portrayed the scammers as a modern office space where there's a guy hyping the troops up saying, here are your targets for this week. Who's hit their targets? Oh, let's see what's coming in from this particular city, and what about our scammers sitting in this particular town? So it gave people, I think, a bit more of a clue to say they're not little kids in basements just having a bit of a crack. They're modern, sophisticated businesses where the salespeople have their targets and they're in trouble from their boss if they're not hitting their targets, and their boss above them says, how come your whole company is not hitting the targets that your company set? So just like any sales organisation, these people have their targets to hit, and they're going to go out and they're not really feeling a lot of sympathy about your life savings that have just been drained.
I just don't want to legitimise what they're doing at all. Yeah, there's the fact that they're running it like a business. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
that's right.
It's just so unfortunate.
It is. So it's not a bad movie. So I did watch it in the end because a guy at the conference said, go and have a look at it. And so it was an interesting movie regardless, but I just love the way that you saw a bit more of reality around how scammers operate. So lots of work being done to prevent scams, lots of work on cybersecurity, but there's lots of ways of getting around it. So still keep being vigilant, please.
Absolutely, and that's the trick, staying vigilant. I've been caught out a couple of times where just in a moment of tiredness, you're just flicking through some emails and then you come across one and you go, oh, I better click on that, and boom, next thing you know. But I always catch myself, I hope, just before it becomes a big problem, and I catch myself, oh, hang on, I didn't check anything about that. I have to close it down before if something happens anyway.
Yeah, and you're always at risk as well of a legitimate email coming through where you have to pay some money or there's some legitimate thing you've got to do, and you go, oh, I'm not touching that because it's a scam, and the next thing you get a phone call, why haven't you fixed that bill or what? Oh, sorry, I didn't see anything. No, I sent you an email last week. Oh, you did too, but it looked like a scam. I'm sorry. So, yeah, that's the new, maybe the checks in the mail. Oh, I thought your email was a scam. I thought your invoice was a scam.
All right, folks, it's time to bring you all the news of all things digital, virtual, and or futuristic. Let's start with this first story. Now, for the uninitiated, Ring is a company that makes video doorbells and security cameras, and a lot of people have these setups now and they record all manner of family and neighbourhood outdoor action, including those close encounters with wildlife. Now, for people who run Ring devices in their homes now, Ring AI offers a video search for uniquely Australian wildlife visitors. So, Matt, you can get AI to search for that time a mob of kangaroos set up camp on your front lawn and stuff.
A whole range of things. And I do like the fact that tech companies are saying, Australia exists. You've got some unique wildlife. Let's take advantage of that, or let's even notice that. And I know car manufacturers, when they're working on autonomous driving, one of the challenges has been the kangaroo bouncing across the road, because when they're using LiDAR in particular, it's sending out a constant signal and it's waiting for bounces to come back from something. So a moose or a cow, some large animal walks out onto the road, it can bounce off that and go, oh, wait up, there's something large on the road, you better slow down. But a kangaroo confuses an autonomous vehicle because there's a bounce back, and then as the kangaroo bounces in the air, there's nothing, and then there's a bounce back and there's nothing.
Yeah,
so the car gets a bit confused.
We need AI to smarten up.
Well, exactly right. It's a kangaroo, don't you realise that? So they've had to do some work with autonomous vehicles, and this is another one where Ring in the past has been able to identify certain things. So it can identify humans, pets, various animals, packages. So you can go back and say to your Ring doorbell, tell me what time a package was delivered, because it's not there now and I want to see what time it was delivered. I want to see how long it was there for. And by the way, tell me when a human came along, so you can search when that package was taken, or tell me when a dog walked past, and it will give you the information about that. So you're actually able to search using your Ring doorbell for certain things. But in the past, if you said, oh, tell me when a kangaroo came past, your Ring doorbell would say, huh? In only the way an AI can say,
Yeah,
huh.
that's right.
So now Ring has said, there's some customers over there in Australia, so why don't we let them search for their footage? So now possum and kangaroo have been added to the things you can search for on your Ring doorbell. Lots of other stuff you can search for as well. So, for example, you can search for magic moments. So they might be one of your kids riding their bike for the first time, or someone doing a handstand in the backyard saying, Dad, did you see that handstand? And you go, oh, sorry. Well, let's look at the Ring doorbell and see. So there's a whole range of good, useful things it can be used for, but it does give you a bit of a clue as to how much we're using AI and don't really know about it. So at the moment, the estimation is 68% of Aussies use AI every single day through some of the things that we have in our homes without realising it. Only 14% actually say, yeah, I know about that AI. So there are lots of things happening in our home, on our phone, with our smart home automation, with our Ring doorbells, all these things using AI. We don't even realise it. So this is just another example where we'll see that, because anyone that's got any sort of CCTV, any sort of video footage knows it's great to have it there. But if you've got to search for it, if I don't know the time, it's a pain.
Yeah.
But AI is getting so much better with lots of CCTV, but also with Ring doorbell. So pretty cool from that perspective. And you can even do things like, for example, you're just wondering whether a dog has been walked today. Has anyone walked the dog? You can ask your Ring doorbell, has anyone walked the dog? And it will search for footage of one of the household residents, maybe one of your kids, maybe your partner, having walked the dog, because everyone might not tell you whether they walked the dog, or they might say they walked the dog and they haven't really walked the dog. So all sorts of things like that. So it's great to see Aussies are up there with using technology. We're quite good at that.
And they've started off with kangaroos and possums, and next, well, the sky's the limit. Wombats, kookaburras.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many wombats I have walking around the front yard, but
Well,
if they
don't-
do,
maybe they are, and you just don't know about
there you
it.
go. I need to go
You
and
need
ask
to
my Ring
search your
doorbell.
cameras. Now, we all have a place in our hearts quietly brimming with fear for the day that robots finally ditch us as their masters and start making decisions for themselves. Well, that day was the 21st of August 2025, when in Montville, Queensland, a robot vacuum cleaner just up and left its domestic duties, headed out of the house and down the street. Matt, hand me my shovel. It's time to put an extension on my doomsday bunker.
Absolutely. So this was just a simple little robot vacuum cleaner that decided it was going
I've
to
had
go
enough.
rogue. I'm out of here. And it was quite funny because they interviewed the owner of this, a guy named Stuart McKenzie, who's a snake catcher. So maybe the robot vacuum cleaner got a bit scared about the things that were appearing in the household. But he did say, I wasn't sure. Did I work it too hard? Was it unhappy with its working conditions? Why did it escape? And it's interesting because you've got a mapped out area for a start. So you kind of think it's going to stay in that mapped out area. This one didn't. Then typically you've also got things that might hit up against as a robot vacuum, but obviously their front door must be smooth enough. And it got to the point it went,
Or maybe this robot set up a ramp for itself.
maybe it did, maybe it built something.
Maybe it's been planning this a long time. This is like the Great Escape.
It might have pushed a few
You can
things
hear the
over
whistling
to the
in
door.
the background.
That's
Yeah.
right. So it made its way down the driveway. They probably had the cleanest driveway of anyone in the neighbourhood because it had a robot vacuum cleaner going down the driveway. And unfortunately, its escape plan was thwarted once it got onto the road, didn't really understand the road rules, and it got hit by a car. So the robot vacuum cleaner is no more.
So you're saying for when the robots take over, we just have to run them over.
Run them over, that's right. That's why they're the size of robot vacuum cleaners. When they get a bit bigger, maybe
When
it'll be
they're
harder.
Terminators.
When they're Terminators, it might be
We
harder
need
to
a
run
big
them
car.
over. But I'm actually trying to find out if anyone can work out what went wrong with this. It was a fairly expensive robot vacuum cleaner. They seem to be pretty good. I use them and they seem to do their job and they stay within
Yours
their
hasn't run away
boundaries.
yet.
They haven't run away yet, but I'm nice to them as well. So maybe that's Stuart's problem. Maybe he wasn't nice to them. I do say good morning. I do say thanks for cleaning up. So I'm still waiting when they take over. But this might be the beginning, James. This might be the beginning of robot vacuum cleaners taking over the world.
Now, we've all been in that predicament where you need your device to have enough charge to last you for a couple of hours, but when you check your battery and it's just at 5%, you've only got minutes before you'll be in a no charge zone. What are you going to do? It's real heart in the mouth stuff. In 2025, do we have supercharging laptops and phones yet, Matt?
We've got power banks that are fantastic. But before I talk about power banks, I want to talk about a bit of confusion. I've had a few people talk to me about this where they've said, I'm a bit confused because I see energy capacity quoted in watt hours or kilowatt hours in, say, for an electric vehicle, and I've seen capacity quoted in milliamp hours. So can you tell me the linkage between those two? And the linkage is a little bit complicated.
Well, it's Ohm's law, isn't it?
Well,
Or
yes.
something like that?
Yes, but it does depend on the voltage. So this is the confusion. So when you quote what your capacity is in milliamp hours, it gets confusing because essentially you need that milliamp hours and the voltage that it would run at to know what the capacity is. So I'm a bit disappointed with manufacturers that quote their items in milliamp hours because you might say, well, that's fine. Power banks are always running at the same voltage, so I can compare power bank A versus power bank B with milliamp hours. But watt hours is the actual energy capacity something is stored at. Or again, it's
So
with
for
a
the
car.
young physicists out there, watt is a measure of power and the amp is a measure of current.
Correct. And so the measure of current, you need to know what voltage it's running at
Correct.
for that to be relevant. So V equals IA, you mentioned Ohm's law.
Yeah.
So essentially you're going to use that to work that out. Why go through all that? Why bother
Yes.
about doing all that?
Seems like a lot of hard work.
Just quote me the watt hours, please.
That's right.
And so it seems to make sense. Now, if you're getting onto an aeroplane with your power bank, not the manufacturers, the airlines say you cannot get on with a power bank over 100 watt hours. They don't make around milliamp hours. They want to know the capacity of that battery.
Right.
So if you're looking at a power bank and it's quoted in milliamp hours, you go, can I take this on an aeroplane or not? You've then got to go and do the conversion. You've got to know the internal voltage, etc. So this new power bank that's come out is 99 watt hours or 27,650 milliamp hours. Again, that doesn't make as much sense as the watt hours. Then the next part, just to give a bit of background. So essentially, the call out to all manufacturers is just quote watt hours for me, please, because it just seems to make more sense.
Yeah.
That's much easier. Then the other part I want to talk about is they often quote the charge to 80% time. And this does annoy some people as well. They often do it with vehicles. They'll say the 0 to 80% charge time. But even with things like power banks, it's probably not as important because you just plug it in and charge up and take it away the next day. But the reason they go to 80% is you've got two phases in charging with any battery. This is not any battery, any lithium battery, any lithium-based battery, lithium ion, lithium polymer. So you've got two phases. The 0 to 80% phase is at a constant current. And that's when the battery's obviously emptier and it wants to get as much charge into it as possible. When you get to 80%, that's when it's changed over to a constant voltage phase, and that starts to slow it down in its charging. And you do that for safety. When you get too much charge and the batteries it gets towards full, that's when you can get those swelled batteries you see, damage the battery chemistry, not as long a life out of your battery. And so manufacturers want to actually say how quickly you can charge something. So that's why they quote 0 to 80%, because it's quicker for that part. It can often take the same amount of time, maybe even a bit longer, to go from 0 to 80 as opposed to 80 to 100. So, for example, if it took 20 minutes to get to 80%, it might take another 20 minutes to get to 100%.
Yeah.
You don't want to quote 40 minutes to charge. You'd rather quote 20 minutes to 80% because it sounds better in a marketing brochure.
And 80% will get you out of trouble.
Correct. If you need to get something charged up quickly to get going, I'm at 80%, that should be enough to charge my phone or get in the car and keep driving off. So that's interesting. There's some new technologies, new chemistries that are being developed where that may change. But for the moment, you're going to see a lot of things quoted 0 to 80%. So after the little background there, the background explainer, if you like, then getting on to the Rapid Pro Power Bank, 99 watt hours, as I mentioned before. And to give you an idea, a typical modern smartphone might have a battery around the 12 to 18 watt hours. So 99 watt hours gives you maybe 5 charges of a smartphone. So that's not too bad. You're going away somewhere for a week, you can go, I just take this and my phone and I'm probably right for a week. If I haven't got easy access to a PowerPoint for a week, I'm okay. A tablet might be 25 to 40 watt hours, and a notebook, again, big variation depending on the size, but 40 to 100 watt hours. So that's even better. You think about one little power bank could fully recharge a fairly large notebook with a 100 watt hour battery. So it's pretty impressive. The nicest thing about this, though, is that it uses a Rapid Pro desktop charger that'll charge it from 0 to 80% in 20 minutes. So there's that 80% charge again. And that's fantastic because you're about to go and, oh, no, I haven't charged up my power bank. Often power banks are fairly slow. They just have a slow charge the whole time. Oh, chuck it in the charger. 20 minutes later, I go, I've got 80%. I'm ready to go. Boom. So that's quite nice. Yeah. The other nice thing about it, it's got USB-C PD 3.1. Now, 3.0 was the previous standard. You could run something like a notebook off PD 3.0, but the maximum power you can get out of that USB-C cable was 100 watts. 3.1 goes to 240 watts. So forget about the old days of a notebook having a little circular charger where you'd have a positive on the outside, a negative on the inside, or vice versa. And every different notebook manufacturer had their own proprietary little charger, and the voltage you had coming in was different for different notebooks. Where's that brand X charger that goes with my brand X notebook? Oh, no, I've only got a brand Y one here. Things are moving now more and more towards USB-C because you can now do it at 240 watts. So that's fantastic. So now we've got a power bank that actually allows you to charge up to 140 watts per USB-C cable. So not the full 240 watts, but 140 watts is usually enough to get you out of trouble with your notebook. So things are happening, and we're getting a world now that's more connected, that's easier to navigate. Gone are the days, well, not quite, getting there, gone are the days where you've got just a USB-C to do everything, and depending on what power capacity, what charge. I can remember a video camera from years ago that I searched high and low. It was probably a few years old, but I needed to keep it going to pull some footage off some of the kids playing around as youngsters. And I needed to search high and low to find this particular cable to power up that video camera to get my footage off. It's like, this is so painful. Whereas now so many things are just a standard cable, a standard USB-C to power so many things. So this power bank is something that you'll see more and more of now. It's got a bunch of USB-C ports, as I said, the 2x 140 watt in and out, 265 watt out. It's getting to the stage now where you just have USB-C for everything, and they will handle the power that we need. So keep an eye out for that one. This is the first of many. Fastest charging power bank in the world is their claim. Fairly specific, fairly niche, I know, but we're getting more and more of those things. And one of the things they do with this is they use gallium nitride, GaN, in their charger instead of a lot of silicon, because gallium nitride is much better for high wattage. It doesn't get as hot, so you can actually keep the heat down in that particular power bank. It's not changing the battery, it's actually the circuitry they've changed to be able to get that higher charge out of it. So things are happening. Things are changing all the time.
That's amazing. That solving problems from different angles, and the world gets better and better.
Better and better.
Now, e-waste is the shocker of the 21st century, with 62 million tonnes of e-waste generated globally each year. Now, think how many phones and laptops that includes. Recycling e-waste is a big issue, but we're getting better at it, thankfully, and a recent step has been in creating 3D printable circuit boards out of PVA. Matt, these are even soluble in water.
What a concept. And the first thing I thought of was, oh no, my notebook gets wet. That's it, my circuit board's dissolved.
Spill that glass of water on the
That's
laptop. Right. It's all over Red Rover.
And they probably don't handle water that well anyway.
No. You don't want to spill glasses of water on your laptop.
And your phone can handle water, not because the components inside can handle water. It's because they seal it up so that no water gets inside. So you still could have a water-soluble circuit board inside it. But this isn't really designed for products that you and I are going to use as consumers. This is designed to allow us to basically prototype things very quickly without creating a whole bunch of waste. So they're using, as I said, a PVA, water-soluble polymer. They basically create the electrical pathways with a gallium-indium liquid metal, and then when they're finished with that, they basically put it in water and it dissolves the PVA and leaves the metal off to the side. So essentially, you use it for whatever you're doing, check out that particular prototype of that circuit board, and then put it in water, you get the metals back out, and do it all again. So you can keep doing it over and over and over. And that's exactly what it's used for at the moment, rapid prototyping, turning the process about working out what circuit boards you need for a particular component. In the past might have been weeks, now you can do it within hours. You can just keep redesigning and then 3D printing these particular circuit boards. I imagine then once you've got a circuit board that does exactly what you need it to do, you would then say, right, let's go and manufacture that in a more traditional way.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure that they know, and definitely sure that I don't know, how this lasts over the long term. Because maybe just a bit of moisture in the air might be enough to start to break down this circuit board.
But the way the way technology works is that someone comes up with this idea and thinks, well, here's the limited sort of frame of uses we can give for it right now, that we can provide. And then someone comes along in another year's time, 18 months' time, and goes, hang on a second, so you can do that with your circuit boards. I can apply that to this new thing. And I just wonder where we're going to go with it.
But the problem you identified at the beginning is spot on. We do create a huge amount of e-waste. It is a problem. We're trying to get better at recycling it. But at the moment, getting the raw materials is still cheaper than recycling, because the recycling process now is quite expensive. You've got to shred the actual materials. You've got to run them through some pretty harsh chemicals. So manufacturers say we need some more whatever materials I might want. There's gold, for example, on circuit boards often. I want the gold out of that. Well, I do all that and I get the little bit of gold off there. Well, the cost of all that is dearer than just going and buying the gold that I might need for it. So until it gets to the stage where that recycling is cheaper, manufacturers will do things in the cheapest possible way. So this sort of concept might be something they might use to be able to recycle those things easier.
Well, making prototypes of motherboards was not something that I really thought a lot about before this moment right now. But obviously it happens a lot for people to go, right, we need to be more careful about how we do this.
Yeah.
And if it's wasteful, we can reclaim the stuff as well. Boom. This is an exciting piece of news, I think.
It is. And I even think it's got some relevant areas where it will be used in education, in research labs, for example. So you can imagine you're studying electronics at university and someone says, right, now go and start doing these prototypes. There'll be a lot of materials used in that in an educational perspective, but now go and do those prototypes, 3D print it. Oh, that didn't quite work how you expected. Do it again.
Throw it in the bucket of water.
Throw it in the bucket of water and let's do it all again. That's right. So, and it's important to be able to do that, because as much as you can design things on a computer and simulate that, then Formula One teams have incredible simulators, but they still then get out on the track and do the testing. So you still want to test the actual circuit board after you've designed it and think you should understand what it should do. You really want to make sure it does do that. So it's quite fascinating. And one of the things I love about this podcast is I get to learn about things that I didn't consider as well. Exactly as you said, rapid prototyping of circuit boards hasn't been number one on my list of things to work out how they do.
But now,
that's right. Look at that. But there are things that people are doing out there which are absolutely vital for our future, and we don't even think about it on a day-to-day basis.
Now, this might have slipped you by. You may not have realised, but the results are in for the MS Office Specialist World Championships. I'm going to say that again. the MS Office Specialist World Championships. That's the Olympics for the geekiest of geeks and the nerdiest of nerds. And the competition this year was as hot as ever. Matt, some people think that they know how to make a spreadsheet. They don't know how to make a spreadsheet, do they?
So what do you consider your Excel skills at? How do you rate your Excel skills?
I'm pretty good at Excel for what I need to do. I know how to make formula and organise my data and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And I can make graphs and present it in a way that's meaningful. But that wouldn't even get me qualified for this, would it?
Well, probably not. And I'm not doubting your Excel skills at all here. I'm trying to be very kind here. But Excel is a cool tool, and I do find people that are a bit nerdy, a bit like you and I mean that in the nicest possible way.
Well, I love other people's spreadsheets, and I'm prepared to look at other people's spreadsheets for a little while.
I find myself using Excel, if I've just got to add up a few numbers, rather than pull out a calculator.
Yeah.
Because if I make a little typo on the calculator, I've got to do it all again. If I make a typo on my Excel summing column, I can go, oh, there's a typo, I'll just fix that one up. And bang, done. So I go to it as a bit of a default tool, and this particular competition you're talking about is officially for the Microsoft Office specialists for their World Championship. And technically, if I want to just do a little flex here, I'm technically a Microsoft Office specialist. I did the course and the exam many years ago. I used to train people in Microsoft Office. Don't do much of that anymore. But that would have qualified me to enter this competition.
Back in the day, right now, I think they'd look at you and go, oh, Matt.
Well, the problem is age. I've got to be no older than 22. So I just sneak over the age limit there.
You and me both.
That's right. But it is a cool tool. And funnily enough, Excel wasn't the go-to tool when spreadsheets first came out. Of course, Lotus 123 was the spreadsheet tool.
You must be so much older than I am.
That's right. It was the DOS tool. When you had good old-fashioned, before you had any graphical interface, I think Lotus 123 would have come out in the early 80s. I remember doing a bit of work with Lotus 123, but a DOS, like non-graphical interface with a spreadsheet was a bit clumsy, I must admit. And the first time Excel came out was 85 on the Mac. They thought Microsoft, which was crazy that you've got Microsoft coming out and bringing out a product for the Mac before they brought it out for a Microsoft package, because obviously back in the day, Apple and Microsoft were at loggerheads, although I know Bill Gates did buy a number of shares in Apple to keep it going at one stage. But essentially they brought out in 85 Excel for the Mac and then 87 Excel for Windows, and that left good old Lotus 123 back in the dark a bit because they kept plugging away with their DOS version. By the time they brought out a Windows version, it was too late. Excel had taken over. And the name Excel, they called it, I wanted a really complicated, beautiful story about Excel, but it was just because they wanted to make something excellent. So they said, Excel is part of excellent. That'll do us. We want to make an excellent spreadsheet, so we'll call it Excel. And actually, there was another company that had a program called Excel as well. So Microsoft, being Microsoft in the day, just said, we'll pay you a lot of money to go away. And they did that, but they had to use the term Microsoft Excel for a number of years when they first did that. It couldn't just be called Excel. So,
well, I often use it in teaching, and it's excellent when you've got to process a group of data really, really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just punch it all in. Data entry is really quick, and then the formula are even quicker, and then you just cut and paste, or you drag across and fill right, fill down, and all of a sudden you've got all the processed data.
And you've got graphs, recommended charts. How easy is that?
Oh, my students love it.
That's right. So, but it is nice to show things graphically. But it's a tool that you can use at a very simple level, a tool you can use at a very complicated level. Pivot tables, that's usually where it trips most people up when you say, show me your pivot table skills. That's where people go, oh, let me just have a look at that. So, but look, it's fantastic.
The Olympics for Microsoft Excel.
So here we go.
We're in July, weren't they?
They were held over the last couple of months, correct? And you had to be between 13 and 22, so that's where we were ruled out just. 400,000 students across the world attempted to qualify. And essentially what you had to do, you had to win your competition at a national level to qualify for the World Championships. And then if you made it that far, the test was speed and accuracy in formulas, functions, data modelling, dashboards, and real-world problem solving. And what I love about it is you get one crack. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So if you qualify at the age of 13 and you have your one crack, that's it. You can't come back next year. You can't come back ever.
So no one comes back as a hot favourite.
No one comes back as a former champion. No one comes back as a hot favourite. So that's it. So if you qualified at 13, you'd go do I want to wait until I'm a bit older? Do I want to have my crack now? Is there going to be some advantage in youth? What do I do? Do I still do it? Maybe I'll never qualify again. I might as well do it now.
So presumably the people at Microsoft have scanned all the best performers in the World Championships and then recruited them for later.
Probably.
Or whoever needs their spreadsheets done or whatever. They're looking for the people with the hottest skills. They found them, and once they've decided whether or not you're hot or not, if you're not, well, they don't want to know about you. And if you are hot, they've already contacted you, and they don't need to go and look at you again.
Probably not. And I think part of that is that I think there'll be Microsoft and a bunch of other companies out there who'd want to know about you as well. Now, one of the things that I found fascinating was they said that they test you for your technical proficiency and creative data storytelling. Now, that worries me a little bit. Sometimes I hear accountants described as being creative accountants, and I think
that's worrisome.
Isn't accounting a bit black and white? So if someone had some creative data storytelling, maybe the tax office might be interested in talking to them to say, what can you find out there and some creativity in your Excel spreadsheets for your accountants out there? They estimate that most people use around 10 to maybe 15% of Excel's capabilities, but for these users to solve some of the problems they're given, the estimation from Microsoft is they need to know about 70% of Excel. Wow.
Yeah,
that's a lot because there's so many things. And sometimes when you're using Excel, what you do is you're doing things and you're solving problems and making things look pretty. And then you go, I wonder if I could do this. And you work out a way to do that. And you've just opened up something you've never looked at before because you needed to do it. But if you didn't need to do that, just having an understanding of that, that's a lot of work you're going to have to do to be able to have a good enough understanding.
That's exactly right. Now, I'm thinking that I'm probably using it at about 10%, but I'd be interested to know what sort of level I am working at.
Well, it'd be interesting, wouldn't it, to see that. So if you're really interested and you think this is a really fascinating topic, there's a documentary called Spreadsheet Champions. And it followed 6 competitors from Guatemala and Greece and Vietnam, Australia, Cameroon and the US to the 2023 championships. So it's got a couple of years age on it, but you get to see all the pressure that goes through. And some of the competitors describe it as the pressure of having someone solve the Rubik's Cube when someone's standing beside them and saying, hurry up and solve the Rubik's Cube. So you've got a whole range of things. And they talk about their favourite functions, their if functions, their XLOOKUP, their macros, all sorts of things. So have a look at that if you really want to get into the minds of people that are spreadsheet champions. One thing I was fascinated by is that the competitors say they're not threatened by AI because AI can produce formulas, but you still need the humans to interpret and see where you might apply them. And I've talked about it before with programming. It's so much easier with AI now. You don't have to make sure you get the syntax right. You can just go and ask AI to produce something, but you've still got to know the right questions to ask. So I kind of understand that. So this is a productivity bit of software, but they're portraying it as a sport or an art form. Even for some of these people, a lifestyle. Their lifestyle of their Excel. That's right.
Well, I've got quite a few spreadsheets, but I hesitate to say that it's a lifestyle.
Well, it is for you, though, because I know you use spreadsheets for some of your fitness journeys. So,
so
fitness, there you go. That's part of your lifestyle.
Recording weather there for a little while as well. But now, look, do you know what? I just had another thought. What if I am using it at 60% of its capacity? I'd be thinking, really? Is that all that it does?
Well, there needs to be a way. There needs to be a simple test.
Look, there's a lot of stuff that you just mentioned just then that are the functions that I never touch. Yeah.
Anyway, it's quite fascinating. The Excel Microsoft Specialist World Championships. Go and have a look at it or look at that documentary.
The robotic revolution in the manufacturing industry is not a new thing. It's something that car manufacturers have lent right into for decades now. But the team at Hyundai in the US state of Georgia have shaken things up and stepped back into the hands-on approach to building cars. Matt, Hyundai is all about the teamwork for making the dream work and still has a substantial workforce on the floor.
And it's interesting, they have a workforce in Georgia. This is a process from the state government in Georgia to try and get more robotics in their manufacturing. They've thrown about $2 billion into this incentive package for Hyundai, so it's a pretty serious investment, you would think. And they've got a plant at the moment that has about 750 robots, which seems like a fairly large number.
That's a lot, yeah.
But 1,450 humans, so about a 2-to-1 ratio. In most of the US industries that you've got across manufacturing cars, for example, there's more like a 7-to-1 ratio, 7 humans for 1 robot.
Right.
And so they're really trying to say, if we want to be competitive on the world stage, we need to have more robots. As much as you might think that's terrible for the humans that you've got there on the factory floor and they're going to lose jobs, I think the logic from Georgia local government is that if you don't have robotics involved, there's just going to be no manufacturing there in your state. They're going to go to another state or another country where you've got robotics because you can do the whole thing more efficiently. When you look at some of the things that they do, and we've kind of mentioned this in the past with robotics, and we've kind of made the throwaway line that you've got two bits of metal, you've got to weld together, and you've got a robot to do that. That's one specific job. It's going to get it right every single time. It's going to do it perfectly. It's not going to say, I'm sick of this job, I'm going to do a sloppy weld today. Yeah. You know it's going to be done right. So robots are used for things like welding, lifting, repetitive tasks, but they're still using humans for things that require quality control or adaptability or maybe even just craftsmanship. So when you've got, for example, precision trim or clips that need to go in or tactile jobs, they're still using humans for that. But the real message here is that the humans can do their job better and use the human skills for things that need human skills. Use the robots for things that need robotic skills. Don't waste the humans' time on boring, repetitive tasks because sometimes they have a bad Friday. They want to knock off early and they just get through that job as quick as they can because humans sometimes are humans, whereas robots are going to do it the same every single time.
Yeah, and humans can get a bit distracted too by this and that. And so,
So one of the things I found interesting was when they're just finishing off the cars, and I've seen documentaries in car manufacturing when they get to the end and they're looking at this car to make sure it's pristine, there's not a single mark on the outside of the car. That's still being done by humans. They're still relying on humans to look over the car and find any little blemish, any little spot that's not perfect, and then using humans to just sand that back and then repaint those little parts. And it's fascinating, isn't it? Because you do all that, and then you put it on a ship, and then you put it on a car carrier, and it probably gets 50 mosquitoes across the front of it just in doing that process before it gets to the showroom floor. So as much as it's perfect when it rolls off the manufacturer's floor, it's probably not perfect when it gets to the showroom floor. But this is all about, I suppose, the two trains of thought. One is, are humans ever going to be used in the future for manufacturing? Are robots going to take over completely? And the logic here is no, there's still going to be a mix of those two, but we need more robotics to be able to make the process more efficient. And when we're talking about things like Hyundai, they're obviously focused on EVs. If we want to get EVs in the mainstream, if we want to get EVs taking over from ICE vehicles, then we need to have ways to do it more efficiently because we want to make them cheaper. So we want to replace a lot of those cars. You're going to do it cheaper with robotics. So it is quite fascinating to see where we go and take advantage of where humans can be used for human skills and let the robotics be used for robotic skills. So the whole robotic sector is booming and you're going to see more and more of this type of thing, I think, in different situations.
Now, for the EV hesitant, the hybrid vehicle is served as a tidy little compromise. Now, here in Australia, they make up a substantial share of the sales in the marketplace. The plug-in hybrids have bolstered these sales enormously. They're a gateway model for those drivers who want to make a change but just can't quite make the full jump yet. So, Matt, what are the implications? Are these a stepping stone to cleaner driving, or are they more like a handbrake to a revolution?
Oh, I still get a bit frustrated when people talk about the fact they've got an electric vehicle and they've just got...
The chest puff up and they go, oh, look, I've got an electric vehicle, and it turns out it's a hybrid.
It's a hybrid. Now, it's a little bit different with plug-in hybrids. I've gotten a bit frustrated with people in the past who go, oh, yes, I drive a hybrid X, and it's just one that recharges the battery a little bit when they're slowing down. They go, oh, you're not really doing much except... you've got a more fuel-efficient vehicle. It's not a step change. It's just a slightly better version of what we had before. And the first hybrid vehicle I bought was about 2005 when I bought a Prius for the first time. And I thought, this is fantastic technology. In 2005, we're now 2025.
Now I've got to remind myself that 2005 was 20 years ago.
Yeah, I know. It's a bit scary, isn't it?
2 decades.
So at that stage, yes, these hybrid vehicles, I remember buying the first Prius and going, this is unbelievable technology, this is fantastic. But people are still buying that now going, this is fantastic. So I'm not that excited. Plug-in hybrid, I'm not quite as harsh on plug-in hybrid.
Well, I wonder how much fuel you use with a plug-in hybrid.
Well, here are some of the interesting parts to it. So supporters say plug-in hybrids are a stepping stone. So that's great. You get people used to plugging in and using that. That's fantastic. Critics, and maybe I put myself in this category, call them a handbrake because they're just prolonging fossil fuel usage. So you've got your plug-in hybrid, you're going to keep using petrol for some years to come. And part of the problem is how the users use it. If I'm really good, and I did have a plug-in hybrid back in 2012, I had a Holden Volt. I think in America they were called the Chevrolet Volt, but in Australia they called the Holden Volt, and that was a plug-in hybrid. Now, it had about a 70-kilometre range, and that did me for most things that I needed to do. If I needed to go on a long trip, sure, the petrol engine was there, but for driving around, it was fantastic, and I was very proud of myself one day when I saw a warning come up on the screen that said, your petrol engine has not started for 3 months. So obviously all the driving I'd done in that 3-month period was less than 70 kilometres. And it said, we need to start the petrol engine for 5 minutes just to make sure that all the lubrication is still distributed around the engine and it doesn't seize up at some stage. I went, cool, I'm very proud of myself. Press the button, it ran the petrol engine for 5 minutes and away you went.
So it didn't even do it automatically?
I suppose it probably didn't want to do it while sitting in the garage at your home or something.
So
so you had to
it
press the
wasn't while
button.
you were out driving.
No, but it didn't know how long you're going to be driving for, so I guess it just had some way. But I liked it. I took a photo of it and went, cool, look at that. I haven't used my petrol engine for 3 months now. So if you're very good at charging up, then fantastic. And if you're doing short trips on a constant basis, absolutely brilliant. But some people say that when they actually look at the usage for someone's plug-in hybrid, then people just drive it like a petrol car. They go puff their chest out, as you say, I've got a plug-in hybrid, but I haven't plugged it in for the last 6 months because I just put petrol in it and drive it around like a normal vehicle, and then you're not really gaining much of an advantage. But the stats are a bit scary. So plug-in hybrid vehicles now make up about 25% of all EV sales in Australia.
Right.
So we think we're getting some progress with EV sales, but it turns out that a lot of them are plug-in hybrids.
So 25% of plug-in hybrids, that means that there's also
25% of all EV sales. If you put a big wraparound EV and plug-in hybrid.
Yeah, so I was going to say, but so hybrids are part of that as well, aren't they?
Correct.
So there is a percentage that is just hybrids.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So there's a percentage of those as well. And so EV sales, I'd just like to see the EV sales grow. But it's not just here in Australia. So, sorry, go back a step. 60,000 plug-in hybrids have been sold in the last 2 years here in Australia. So that's okay. Now, utes are the one. And so I kind of think this is one there I can be a little bit more accepting because you sometimes might load up a ute with a trailer. You're taking a ute with whether it be a caravan or a boat or just a tradie taking around a trailer with various things on it, or you might even be loaded up with a load of sand to go and do some concreting or whatever if you're a tradie. So a plug-in hybrid in that scenario, if most of your trips are just running around town and you might need a heavy load, I can probably live with a plug-in hybrid a bit more. And I did run into someone with a plug-in hybrid ute when I was charging up one day. And he was charging up at the supercharger beside me. And he said that he'd only put petrol in it once and he'd already owned it for, say, 2 months. So he was actually quite good at using it the way it was meant to be used. So fantastic. So I can kind of get that one. But plug-in hybrids surged from 1% to 5% of new car sales in the last year. So of all the cars we sell in Australia, plug-in hybrids are now at 5%. So that's gaining a bit of traction. Having said that, battery electric vehicles, so straight BEVs, have plateaued at under 9%. We used to get excited when we've gone from 1 to 2 to 5%. They've hit 9% and they've kind of stopped. Now, would they be there still if you didn't have plug-in hybrids filling in that void, or is it a stepping stone? So maybe it's a stepping stone, I'm not sure. EV growth has slowed outside of China. Sales are stagnated in the US and Europe. In China, they're still going ahead. So it's maybe a stepping stone. I suppose in 5 years' time, we'll see whether or not it was a stepping stone, and then people went, oh, this is fantastic. Now I want to go to that next step and get my proper vehicle. But I ran into a friend the other day who commutes about 30 or 40 kilometres to his job in the big smoke in one of the capital cities in Australia every day. Yeah. And I said, why aren't you driving an EV? That's 60 to 80 kilometres a day. And his argument was sometimes we do a long trip. Oh, well, is that good enough reason? So
other ways are around it.
That's right. Yeah. So for someone like that, maybe they would entertain a plug-in hybrid. And I didn't say that to him because I didn't want to stain my reputation by staying to advocate for plug-in hybrids. But maybe for that, when he's doing that most days, he would get by with a charge most days. And funnily enough, he said at his workplace, they do have free charges. Their workplace provides free charges.
And charges are popping up everywhere now.
They are.
Part of the problem before was that people saying, well, there just aren't enough charges around, but there are charges everywhere now.
You're right. And I mentioned before, been at the Gold Coast, and we flew to the Gold Coast, but we hired an EV, of course. We hired a car. I can't hire a car without hiring an EV, so we did that. And one of my little tricks is I normally, with my own car, carry extension lead or work out somewhere in a car park at a motel we're staying at, where are the power points to plug into. You drive around, and I drove into this underground car park at the motel we're staying at, and I saw lined up across the back wall 6 fast chargers, not superchargers. That was fine.
That's right.
I'm at
You
a
charge
motel.
them overnight.
Overnight, absolutely right. And I went, no, look at this, fantastic. I've got all these fast chargers. I don't have to run around trying to find a power point somewhere and make sure I can park next to that spot. So that was fantastic. So you're right, it's getting more and more that you'll see those chargers.
I'm just not hearing the voices of people who've bought themselves EVs and were disappointed.
Yeah, that's true too, isn't it?
That's just not hearing those voices. Maybe they're out there, but for the people who are still holding back, where are the people that are poo-pooing the whole idea?
That's right. We're the ones who have bought it and said, I'll never buy one of those again. I'm going back to my petrol engine. You're right. I don't see that. But see, there's a reason for that, James. I always say that it's intelligent people that buy the battery electric vehicles, and so they're intelligent enough to work it out beforehand and they get it right. So they're okay.
Yeah, right.
But one of the things that's interesting, and this is a marketing question more than a tech question, dealerships are stocking more plug-in hybrid electric vehicles than they are battery electric vehicles. Now, are they doing that because that's what the consumers want? Or are they doing that so when someone walks in, obviously it's better for the dealership to sell something that's on the floor. So is it the chicken or the egg? Which is coming first? Because if I walk into a dealership and there's a bunch of plug-in hybrids and no battery electric, I go, well, that must be what you're selling and I want to buy a car and you've got one there, I'll buy that. Or are the dealerships saying that no one asked for a battery electric vehicle, I've got to stock plug-in hybrids because that's all anyone wants out there? It's a fine line. Which way does that go?
Yeah.
So anyway, we're getting there slowly. Things are changing a little bit-ish, and I think
there's a pause. We might see some growth. Maybe this time next year, fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's right. And I think as we're getting longer range, as we're getting faster charging,
the
and more
technology
charges,
just keeps improving and improving and improving.
The experts
More
do
and more
say
reasons.
that the long-term solution still to normal passenger vehicles is still battery electric vehicles. So if you've got to buy your PHEV to get you to that next step, go for it, folks. But BEV is going to be the final solution.
Well, the virtual world is well and truly going to the dogs. Consumers can now take any photo of their four-legged friend now and turn them into a 3D avatar. Matt, I cannot for the life of me see any use for this whatsoever. But apparently there is a market for it.
Why? And
Take a photo of your dog and get it to be something that you can play with on your screen.
potential applications include virtual reality, augmented reality, the metaverse, text-to-animation content. But yes, do we really need all of those things with our dog?
Maybe we do. Maybe I just don't understand why we do.
The concept here is quite clever. There's some researchers in South Korea that have been doing this work where they're saying, take a photo, single photo of your dog, and we will turn that into a 3D animated avatar. So that's pretty clever. And one of the ways they're doing that is they're saying you've got to tell us the breed of your dog as well. So with humans, a photo turned into an avatar, they kind of know what humans look like in the main. Humans are short and tall and large and small, but generally we're basically the same shape. But dogs, a whole range of different, you've got distinct shapes and sizes, fur textures, different features.
Yeah.
So tell us what your dog is and send us a photo and we'll turn that into a 3D animated avatar. So that's pretty cool technology in the start. But yeah, sometimes we talk about things on this show that you go, they did it because they could.
I'm just thinking, you got this dog out the back door looking through the back window, or maybe it's sitting on your lounge watching you with your headset on, playing with your dog in the virtual world.
That's right.
And wishing that you might throw a tennis ball for it.
Now, maybe you might want to do it with a dog that's old and passes away.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, there's that. There's that. Like
keep living with that
can
dog.
Be that friend
That's
forever.
Right. What I found fascinating is over a quarter of households here in Australia have a pet. So there's a big market for it. And one of the things the researchers said in this was that we kind of have focused a bit on creating avatars in other realms, but we haven't really done it with companion animals. So maybe someone that's lonely, that's living by themselves, and they used to have a dog, but they can't now. They might be living in an aged care facility somewhere that can't have pets. Then they create an avatar.
Who says it has to be a recent photo? It might be a photo from childhood.
Might be, indeed. So if you've always wanted an avatar of your dog, then and it's only dogs at the moment, so if you've got a favourite, cat
bad luck.
or kangaroo or whatever it might be.
Sit tight though.
Well, that's right. If this takes off,
If you've got a favourite kangaroo, yeah, that
give it
could be.
time. And then you can have it bouncing around in your virtual universe and having your Ring doorbell pick it up. So it's fascinating technology, but yeah, I'm a bit with you. It's like, can we go and solve cancer
Well,
first?
someone who's listening out there is going, yes, that's what I need, and that's good. That's good. It's got to use.
We've given them the news.
And of course, while we're on the subject of virtual dogs, here's a story to round things off, all about robot dogs on the moon. Matt, this is sounding like a B-grade 60s science fiction flick, but tell us about robot dogs on Mars and the moon.
Yeah, so we're getting to the stage where we're going to have the need, supposedly, for some dogs, some robot dogs on the moon, and then when we finally get to Mars and start colonising Mars. Now, this is serious, James, because I'm going to give you some acronyms.
Right.
They've thought about these.
All right.
So
and if
I know.
there's a good acronym,
That's right. You know my
it's worth it.
hypothesis that if it's got a good acronym, you know
If a
someone's...
job's worth doing, it's worth giving a good acronym too.
Right. So we've got, firstly, there's three acronyms I'm going to give you here, which one's probably initialism rather than acronym. So the first one is the LASSIE project, LASSIE, and LASSIE, of course, stands for, which I like the play on LASSIE.
So they got the acronym first, and then they thought, well, how are we going to make this work?
So this might almost be a backronym where you come up with the acronym first and then come up with the word. So LASSIE in this case stands for Legged Autonomous Surface Science in Analog Environments.
Excellent.
They've kind of missed the A in the acronym there, but I can live with that because they've thought about it. Now, the next one they had, this is another linked project, which I'm not going to talk about too much, but I just like the fact it's a good acronym. They've come up with Trusses, TRUSSES, stands for Temporarily Robots Unite to Surmount Sandy Entrapments, Then Separate. There's a fair bit of work into that acronym. And then the other one is this project that I'm going to talk about is funded by NASA's P-STAR. So P-STAR, it's almost an initialism rather than acronym, but it's for planetary science and technology through analog research. So there are some people paid some serious dollars here to come up with acronyms.
And they've done a great job.
They have, and
Well
I'm
done,
quite
guys.
happy with those. What we do have, though, is a need for some four-legged robots, dogs, whatever you want to call them, to go out and explore some of these territories that we start to conquer and
Well,
land
it's
on.
fairly rugged terrain, and we find that four legs is able to correct itself on, or objects with four legs able to correct themselves a little bit better than things with wheels.
Correct. So they've tried things like rovers that have got wheels on them,
Mm-hmm.
but wheels aren't great, especially when you get the terrain that's fairly varied. You've tried humanoid, but we're struggling with humanoid robots on Earth. So you go and put them into an environment that you don't really know and understand that well, and they're not fantastic. Four legs, though, and we see that with animals. Animals are very stable. Animals can go across a whole range of terrain. We look at goats in
climbing
mountains.
sheer rock walls and
That's
stuff. Yeah.
incredible.
Well, this is the thing. I remember, was it 2015 where we landed a probe on an asteroid for the first time, and it landed and it fell over.
And then we go,
And
can
so
you
we got
stand
an
up again?
excellent photo of it falling over. Well, not of the probe itself, but of the terrain.
From a 90-degree angle.
Yeah. And then that was it. We can't do anything else with it because
you
it's
stand
not
up
going to work
again?
because it's fallen over.
Yep.
But these things with four legs, they can correct themselves. That's
They
a
can.
really important thing.
And they've been doing some tests with a quadruped, I assume is how you pronounce that, robot named Spirit, and they're doing that in the White Sands National Park in New Mexico because it's got loose, unpredictable gypsum sand, which is a bit like the Martian surface. They've done some earlier tests over in Mount Hood in Oregon because that's a bit more like lunar terrain. So the tests have been going well, and they've had Spirit, the dog, walking autonomously around. They've got it doing tests, sampling the ground, sampling what's around. So you would send the dog out on a forward mission. We're going to go and explore that area of the moon. Off you go, rover.
Make sure there are no aliens.
Well, that's important as well. Go and check out the far side of the moon and then come back and tell us what you found. And presumably you can navigate around that and also take some samples as you go. So if we are going to explore some of these other bodies like the moon, like Mars, we're going to need our friendly robot dogs alongside us. And we've got Spot the robot dog.
Man's
We know
best
it's
friend.
used for a whole range of things.
Yeah.
This is going to next level. Tests on Mount Hood, when they did those tests, included slushy snow, rocky slopes, shifting dirt, boulders, so all the sort of things that you might encounter on the moon, for example. So I think it all sounds pretty interesting. But also, if we can get them to walk around the moon and on Mars, then surely maybe I should give up on the humanoid robot in my house and just go for a robot dog to pick up the clothes around my house, pick up in its mouth and take to the laundry and drop into the laundry basket. Maybe I'm going too high asking for a humanoid robot around the house. Maybe this will be better.
That's the answer. It's got to be a dog to pick it up with his jaws.
With his jaws, why not?
Shake it about the place and then chew it a bit. And
Well, I was thinking it wouldn't slobber on it too much. It'd probably be okay.
yeah, remembering Doctor Who had a robot dog.
Yeah, good
Much
point.
less useful though.
That's right. So
Terrible when it came to stairs.
it is fascinating where we're going to go with this, but this is probably a better solution than some of the Mars rovers that we've seen in the past. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is that for another week of Futurism, folks. Your sneak peek around the corner and right into tomorrow's bedroom. Thanks for another cracking tech talk, Matt.
I'm going to go and just check out some of my CCTV to see whether I've had kangaroos. I don't think I've had kangaroos in my
What about
front yard.
wombats? You might have had some wombats.
Yeah, maybe some wombats around.
No, it's not recognising wombats yet, though.
No, it's not. It's only going to do possums and
Possums and
kangaroos.
kangaroos.
But maybe I'm going to go and look for wombats just to see, so I can then tell a video doorbell company that you need to be looking for wombats as well.
So that might explain those enormous holes in your yard as well.
Maybe.
And thank you for tuning in once again, ladies and gentlemen, to Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. It really is your chance to get a head start on the competition, if only for conversation topics around the dinner table. I'm your host, James Eddy, wishing you 1,000 successes over the next 7 days. Now, assuming that you're only awake for 16 hours per day, that's one success every 6 minutes and 43 seconds. And there you have it. You won't get a better offer than that. Between now and then, at least, take care, and we'll see you when we see you.